Something. Okay. Check.
Test.
Okay, thank you everybody for your patience while we got the AV set up. I think we're live. I'm Cindy Royal. I teach in the School of Journalism and Mass Communication at Beth Montague Interclass. Hello. I teach the digital media classes, and I teach in a class called Coding for Communicators this semester. I teach web design. So the topic of this panel is very interesting to me in the classes that I teach because I'm very interested. I am still interested in students getting really creative new kinds of digital jobs and moving into new realms that take this hybrid of storytelling and technology savvy and run with it. had a lot of experiences with our graduates doing that. So we have this great panel today, and I'm just going to introduce them briefly, and then they're going to go more into their details and background. I hope we'll have some time at the end for questions, so start thinking of some really good questions for these people. This is a star-studded panel. I'm not sure if you're aware of that, but we have some rock stars in digital media that are with us today. To my right is Trey Brundrett, who's the Chief Product Officer for Vox Media, and they run sites like SB Nation, Eater, The Verge, and Vox. And then Colton Parker is a recent graduate of Texas State. It wasn't that long ago that he was sitting in my classes, and now he is a rock star at San Antonio Express News. He moved from being a web producer to a digital editor already. So we're really proud to have him here, and I think that's a career path that a lot of you would be interested in. And then we have Annie Werner, and Annie is a San Marcos native, and she has come to Mass Public in the past. We're very happy when she visits us. She moved to New York to go to college at NYU and ended up getting an internship, I guess it was at first, for a little company called Tumblr. And the rest is history. So she works as a product specialist now at Tumblr. And then at the very end, last but not least, we have Meg Turney. How many of you know Rooster Teeth? Red versus Blue. They are a fantastic organization that's right in Austin. We've had the founder, Bernie Burns, here from Mass Comm Week several years. We're really glad that Meg could join us. She's also a Texas State grad. So really proud of her. She just started working for Rooster Teeth, hosts one of the shows there, and she'll be able to tell us everything that's going on with Rooster Teeth. So without further ado, I'm going to let these people talk because they're the ones who have the interesting things going on. If each of you would just give a brief introduction about maybe your background and what you do, what your company does, and then we'll kind of go from there.
Howdy. So it's nice to see all of y'all. So my role at Vox Media is as Chief Product Officer is that I actually lead a product team at the media company. So we have all these different verticals that we're in, these kind of brands of SB Nation, The Verge, Polygon, Eater, Curbed, Racked, and now Vox.com. And we have built a platform, a technology platform called Chorus that we've launched almost all of the sites on. We're now about to launch Racked and Curbed. But my background is as a programmer early on, and I got my start at Texas Monthly up in Austin, and then started doing kind of strategic internet development, and then got my way into politics, which was actually a really awesome way to think about the internet and connecting with audiences and connecting with people and building community. For the purpose of trying to get people elected and change policy, but that's what led me into media as well.
Hello, I'm Colton Parker. I'm the digital news editor at the San Antonio Express News, which is the largest newspaper in South Texas. I started as an intern 2 years ago at the Austin Bureau in politics, covering the state legislature. And the internship turned into a part-time gig. And I did that through studying journalism at Texas State. And I graduated in December and became a full-time breaking news, digital news reporter at the San Antonio Express News. And I guess it's been about 10 months now. And now I've become the digital news editor as of about a month ago. So I lead a team of about 4 reporters. And we, I guess, try to bridge that gap between the newspaper and the internet. And we're very heavily focused on the internet. The newspaper has, we don't think much about the production of the newspaper in our day-to-day reporting. Reporters are expected to push about 3 stories a day, give or take. And our focus is to build a whole package, not just copy for the internet.
Lean into it, or you can pull it out. Take charge. Got this. All right. Hey guys, I'm Annie, and as Cindy said, I started at Tumblr as an intern about 4 years ago. I was doing community outreach for them and have done many subsequent roles. I started my full-time gig there as the arts evangelist, which was a creative marketing role that marketed to creative industries. We had one for every like creative vertical, like politics, art, music, and I took on the art role. And then I got promoted about a few months ago to this editor role where I'm overseeing all of the content on Tumblr and promoting that in the radar and in our discovery features. And then I work as a program and product specialist to help develop some of those features, both on the discovery side and creation side, as kind of like a consultant for engineers and designers. It's a really cool job. It's like getting paid to brainstorm, but so it's really awesome, and I'm excited to be here.
Man, my job's so much less technical than y'all's. Like, I played video games as a kid, and I was like, how do I make money doing that? So I did that. No, I graduated here at Texas State, and then I did a summer internship when I was a senior at a tiny little cable network called G4 that went under. It's very sad. But basically, I got to see that people actually did get paid to talk about video games, and I was hooked. So I got a job at DeviantArt and created their video division there, and then joined this tiny, I keep saying everything's tiny, big, amazing, huge YouTube channel called SourceFed, and basically like cut my teeth there, hosting and playing video games and being an idiot for the internet. And then took my leave of SourceFed and started at Rooster Teeth, where they are all idiots on the internet, which I love. So I'm not in charge of anyone. Everyone here's, I'm in charge of me. I decide when I get a donut, and that's, I don't ever see anybody. I basically make news stories every day. I pinch a lot of content from Polygon, so thanks for that. But basically, I just report what's going on in video games, tech, entertainment, science, and play video games for a living.
So how many of you would like to have a job like one of these people? Like, I would hope all the hands would go up. Okay, mass comm majors. And I'd like this to be as much of a conversation as possible, so I won't go down the line each time. I may start at different places, and feel free to jump in if you have something to say. But since this panel is about creativity, how is creativity a part of your work? I think it's obvious to some of us, you know, in some of your jobs, but it may not be as obvious for others. So who wants to start with that one? Okay, since you have worked on arts, I think that's a pretty obvious angle. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think the really liberating thing about internet jobs is that pretty much any interest area you could develop, there's some sort of internet application to it. I kind of vaguely studied art and journalism in college, and as I was working at Tumblr, and one of the benefits, I guess, of working at a startup is that you can really develop your role there on your own terms. And so I kind of said, hey, I have interest in arts and media. Can I take on the arts community at Tumblr? So, you know, that was creativity in job creation. Now in my current role, I think creativity is inherent to the development of Tumblr as a product. We're constantly thinking about new ways to make Tumblr better for our users and for people putting content on our platform. So it's kind of like you always have to be in this sort of creative mindset of like, how can we make this better? How can we make this more fun and interesting for our users?
So Meg, your job is pretty creative.
I like, hey guys, yours not creative. You don't get to shh. Meg, go ahead. It's okay. Jokes happen sometimes in panels. Deadpan. It's cool. My job now, the creativity is more in how are we going to make the news fun without being disrespectful to the news. We drop a lot of not nice words in our news stories, but you don't want to be too, you know, they're too much. At SourceFed, it was a lot more about being creative in that what can we put on the internet that people are going to laugh at? What is nobody else doing? What games is nobody else playing? At Rooster Teeth, there's a lot of like Achievement Hunter takes care of itself, and there's a lot of like encapsulated content. But for us and our day-to-day, I think it's mostly about how we're writing the news. If we can incorporate somebody else into it, we do a weekly recap. What stupid thing can we get away with as our skit in the weekly recap? YouTube in general, though, is just what is somebody not doing and how can I do it before anybody else figures out that nobody's doing it? That's basically all YouTube is.
And so Colton, I know that you have been very creative with your use of social media, so maybe you could talk a little bit about that and other ways that creativity manifests in your day-to-day.
Well, a big reason I got into journalism, I guess, because I didn't think I was very creative. I could never really write or anything like that. And I didn't, like you get a story, you write it, it comes natural. But with the internet and everything changing in the way that we present that reporting, I've had to be creative in the way that I think about how I find news stories, how I source my stories, how I present those stories, trying new tools, trying new ways to go about things, trying new ways to write stories. How funny can I be? Where's the line? Being creative with finding that line, I guess. Also, just creative in workflow, like newspapers. In the last talk he gave, he talked about how newspapers are very ingrained with deep process, like militaries or hospitals. They have certain ways that they work, and most of the ways that they work aren't very beneficial or shaped for the internet. And so a lot of creativity that I try to be creative about the way that we think about why are we doing this? Is there a reason to be doing this? Can we do it a better way? And what those ways are. A lot of it is not being afraid to fail and trying new things, and to be able to make sure that whenever things do work, figuring out how to manifest that across different stories for your audience to engage in.
So do you ever encounter any resistance to your creative ideas in a traditional news organization?
Yes.
We're on camera, so,
So,
but go ahead.
right. And I think I would imagine a lot of newspapers have this problem. It's some people, there's kind of some tension between online and the newspaper. And we maybe, to make it matters worse, have a paywall site and a free site. And we call it the premium and the free site. And there's a lot of, there's the idea that people on the internet are ruining journalism. Cat videos on BuzzFeed or whatever it is ruining journalism.
Oh, that's my job.
Well,
How dare you.
I don't feel that way. I think that those things are necessary to supplement other more serious journalism or whatever you want to call it. I think everybody's trying to figure out how to get there. But we definitely, even though we're all in the same newsroom, it's almost like our team and y'all's team kind of thing. And that is not helpful to the way you move your stories online. Everybody's in that newspaper is really good reporters. They're very smart. They could all do these things. But the key is figuring out how to get everybody to work as one team. And again, finding out where that line is of, I think we're still trying to figure out what our identity is online. And I think most newspapers are, because they've had this certain identity in print for so long. And that's starting to change as they move online.
So cat videos and quizzes are a sort of a trademark of something like BuzzFeed, but I think that they're like secretly going after the young demographic, and they're building some tools in the background, some competencies in the background where they're going to be a different kind of organization very, very soon. So the traditional organizations need to pay attention and not just be like, oh, they just do cat videos and quizzes. That's not a concern of ours.
Yeah. No, I think it's really easy to just say, oh, cat videos, and put them in that category. But if you look at the trend in media and hiring and people who are actually going to war, countries that are in war, we have a bureau in Austin and in the Valley. We used to have a bureau in the Mexico City, and now we don't. But you see people, and even the New York Times and the Washington Post are pulling foreign correspondents back. CNN's doing the same thing. But you see places like BuzzFeed, they're able, in Vox, BuzzFeed's able to send a reporter to the Sochi Olympics to cover LGBT issues. Whereas like you may have one AP reporter or one Washington Post reporter covering the whole thing. BuzzFeed has the resources because they are building that foundation to have the demographic.
I got to jump in here. Actually, I know a lot of my friends are reporters at BuzzFeed, and I have a real respect for their model. I think they keep a lot of their content departments very separate. They have the content team that is creating some of the more like lowest common denominator stuff that's getting eyeballs onto their website. And my friend has seen the benefits of this. My friend Katie Baker wrote an investigative journalistic piece for BuzzFeed that got 10 million views. You don't see that kind of thing a lot of other news sites.
Yeah, so BuzzFeed is staffing up investigative reporting, and just be on the lookout for them. I think that they'll be a very different organization in a year from now.
No, come work for us.
And I was going to say that BuzzFeed as well as Vox get viral, and they get data and analytics in terms of running their business, and you probably have something to say about that since you work on the systems that help generate that information.
The first thing I want to say is that code is creativity in a lot of ways. It's all about what you have the skills and the ability to do. And so I think there's a notion that, traditionally computer sciences have been kind of, an engineering or that kind of mentality, but like it's now a mode of expression in this medium. And when we are creating and telling stories and connecting with people and building on the internet, those are kind of like baseline sort of like means of being able to create things. And it's not the same sort of like you're building enterprise software IT stuff. It's that, which is, people can go do that. We need people to do that. Don't mess it up. But there's also this notion of like you taking those skills and you could be very creative with them. They enable a lot of this stuff. I think that, we're talking about BuzzFeed, but a lot of these, where we've come from is as a digital native media organization, as a technology and design are at the heart of how we work. We are working within this medium. This is the way that we express ourselves. And so I think that's where the creativity comes in. And to be honest, the harder problem is finding the constraints within that creativity, because you can do anything on the internet. I mean, almost all of the things. And so finding, how you kind of create things and learn and template. I think the thing that's interesting about something like BuzzFeed is that the more interesting thing is that how they're experimenting with story formats. And we've been doing very much the same thing ourselves. And what's the means with how you actually can tell stories and create within the system and then sort of repeat it. The other thing I just say about creativity, it's not always about making things, it's about learning things. And, that's a big part of like, being able to experiment and try things. And so I spent a long time like just playing on Tumblr with my sweet challenger.tumblr.com. There's no E, it's GR.
I'll suck.
Yeah, I'll suck, exactly. But I learned a lot about like interacting with like on that platform and building things and creating. And so that's a really important thing, is to get out there and just be part of this new internet ecosystem as well.
So the next thing I want to know, things change very quickly in the digital world. And you all graduated in different years. What is it that you learned in school that was lasting, that has helped you in your career? We'll answer that question first, and then we'll come back and find out what you didn't learn in school. So Meg, you're a Texas State grad.
Yay.
What'd you learn here?
Editing. Editing is so important. Even if you want to make your own YouTube channel, you have to edit. Nobody does like you get to see the person turn the camera on anymore. Nobody likes that shit. Cut that out. So you have to learn how to edit. We learned how to edit on Final Cut. You can take that over to Premiere, different shortcuts, same system, but it is so helpful when you can say, I can edit my own material.
Let's go next.
Affirmative head nods all around. Yes.
Okay, Annie, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, God, what didn't I learn? I think actually the most valuable experience I had was working on my student newspaper. But it was digital only. We kind of learned from an early age and sort of through experimenting what kind of content was successful, what got people to read things, what got people to click. I learned social media best practices through running this organization. And when you're kind of given the reins to do something like that, you can fail and learn and succeed all at the same time. So I really recommend like doing extracurricular work like that out of school.
Yeah, to that point, I learned most of my foundation of actual reporting and journalism at the University Star here. I think that's probably the biggest thing I learned at Texas State, other than, I guess I'll put that on one side. I also learned a lot about the digital media, where it's going, and social media. I think the reason I started a Twitter account was because it was a requirement for Cindy's class. And now I use Twitter every day, 10 times a day, probably more than that, right? Thank you. But I think it's really important to have the foundation of reporting knowledge and the skill and what is this. And I think that's the best thing I learned at Texas State, but also learning basics. I also took a coding class with JC, and that was the first time that I had ever even looked at code. And it was only a semester, but I feel like I got a really basic understanding of it, to the point where most people my age, and I'm still really young, just out of college, I'm 24. So even people who graduated at the same time as me, maybe from UT or a different school, that did not have that basic learning. So I think it's important to not just take, like if you're a journalism major or advertising major, I think it's important to try to take as many different classes as possible and stretch yourself as far as possible, like a lot of electives and minors that your teachers or advisors think could be helpful in some digital media career.
Trey, what did you learn in school that's been helpful?
I was in school 2 decades ago, so and to be honest with you, I didn't finish because the internet bubble was a really big deal. So I studied astronomy.
You're not even supposed to be on these meetings.
I'm so sorry. Was I supposed to answer this question?
We can move on.
I will just say, actually, what Colton just said is like really important. Actually, a lot of the skills that I use today were not the ones that were, I actually started off doing computer science. At the time, it was, very different. Like what you were creating, the internet was new, and school hadn't caught up to that. But it was really like critical thinking and all the other courses that I took. That's actually how I made my way into astronomy, away from computer science, is that it was just, I was learning a lot and thinking and applying it in a completely different way. And I just can't overemphasize enough. There's a lot of like focus on like the specific things, like right for your field, but that broad knowledge is going to become even more important as like a lot of the skills and techniques and stuff become even more kind of commoditized. Like it's going to be all the other awesome creative things that that are going to be really important for you.
I want to jump in on that point as well. I think like having a liberal arts foundation as my education was really important, especially since I'm managing a lot of content that is produced for a mass audience. Kind of having an understanding of like broader culture and diversity, and making sure that I can think about all of those things before hitting approve on content is important, to be sensitive and understand all that stuff.
Yeah, I was a sociology major before and then a minor, and I think that those classes really helped me in the same way. Like I'm producing content for mass audiences, so it's with both the content and the analytics, you kind of get a sense of what people want, what the masses want. I guess maybe you don't want them to want that, whether that's cat videos or whatever it is, but you're in a position where you're creating things for that, or you can try to create things that they think they want, that you want them to want, I guess. And so I think what she says really important. It's not just about journalism or advertising or whatever. You can really build a foundation for the way that you think about the world or the way you think about your audiences through other classes like sociology or whatever that may be, or astronomy.
So we all know that digital changes very, very quickly through our own experiences. And I like to think about ways that we can like teach students for jobs that don't exist yet. In my own example, I'm very, very old. And when I graduated from college, if somebody asked me what I would be doing in my career, there was no web for me to say I would be a web designer and I'd be a teacher of web design. It didn't exist. It had not been created by Tim Berners-Lee yet. The internet was nothing like what it is now. I could not have predicted that this is where my life would take me, and nothing I did in school could prepare me specifically for working on a medium that had not been created yet. And so this is the world you're moving into. And so I'd like to know, I mean, some of your brief careers, I'm sure you've had to learn things you didn't learn in school, and how you figured those things out. How do you update yourself and stay relevant?
Well, I guess I'm kind of in that same vein, which is something I wish I had learned. It existed. YouTube obviously existed when I was in college, but there was no emphasis on YouTube. It was so very not taken seriously at all. It was certainly not a career path. And there was no idea of here's how to make a good YouTube video. Here's different types of YouTube videos. Just actually making your point that you had to make a Twitter for Cindy Royal's class. I had to make my Twitter for England's class, and I was like, what is this bullshit? Facebook is going to stomp this. It never occurred to me that it would be so helpful as it is now. But if I wish that someone had said, go make a YouTube video, because there's so many people in my field when I was getting in who wanted a hosting reel. But all I had was my mass comm news hosting reel, and they're like, get that shit out of here. We do not want that. Do not want news. Like, you cannot bring a news, like, I'm McDurney, and tonight, nobody wants that in entertainment hosting. And so I wish someone had just made me like make a YouTube video and not talk like a news reporter a little bit more.
So my first semester teaching at Texas State was in 2006 fall, and so 2006, 2007, YouTube was just starting, and I was talking about it a lot. And my evaluations had a lot of, why do we talk about YouTube so much? That's stupid. It's not mass comm. And I mean, thank you.
Adorable.
Yeah, that's adorable now to think
So
back
cute
to
of
that
you.
time frame. It was a
Yeah.
simpler time. But I mean, to hear you say that is that, you know, it's very important to stay on the forefront of these things because it was where we were going.
Absolutely.
And I just
making-
ignore those kinds of evaluations, just FYI.
You don't know. I'm smarter than you. You don't know. Yeah, just going in that direction, just making, even if it's like a new thing, like, remember when Ello, like 5 weeks ago, when Ello tried to catch on? Yeah, that was
Like
adorable.
5 weeks ago.
But just-
so 5 weeks ago.
Exactly. Thank you. But I mean, like, just making people try new things to see, you know what, this thing is, this social network might be successful because of blank, and if it isn't, all right, well, that sucked, and we can all laugh about it later. But then if it is, you've got experience in it, and that's great.
No, I think, yeah, like that's actually literally how I got my job at Tumblr. I was blogging and doing news and stuff like that, but I had started a Tumblr to collect my clips, and I was kind of just reblogging things and adding commentary and slowly becoming really obsessed with the platform. And if I hadn't, you know, just kind of dived in there, I wouldn't have the job I have today. And then that said, I take that approach with every sort of new media. I mean, I don't use Vine when it first came out. I obviously tested it. I mean, all the content on there gives me vertigo, but I get it. I totally get it.
So for me, the things that I didn't learn were like the business side of journalism. How do you make money in media? I had like, and
I don't think anybody
if
knows
you
how to
can
do
right,
that, but
yeah, if that's possible. Cat videos, I guess it is. I think that it was like hard, like it's good to kind of put journalism not necessarily on a pedestal, but in its own world and understand like the craft and the art of journalism. But it's also really important to understand that you can't do that unless you make money to supplement that work. And that was something that, like, I didn't take any advertising classes, which I regret. And I also didn't learn things like analytics. That was something that I've had to pick up since graduating. And so things like in analytics, you know, and advertising kind of go hand in hand. So I think that the business side of it and the important, you know, there's new business models out there now, but just basically how do you monetize this was the biggest thing that I think I didn't learn and wish I would have.
So how do you keep up?
I'm real old. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of, I mean, the main way is like by making things, to be honest with you. And like it doesn't matter how old you are and like age, whatever on the internet is sort of like whatever, even these days. There's actually a great article that I just read the other day that was, you know, like, don't even tell people how old you are because it's just like, it's their stick to measure you. On the internet, like you can make really amazing things and people take that seriously for what it is. And I really think that the key thing is, you know, the way that I learn is by making, and it's been that way from the very beginning. And whether it's like making YouTube videos or whether, I mean, honestly, like, you know, whether you're like running a Tumblr that's like, that gets really big and is getting a lot of reblogs and like that you like tap into like the automotive like community on Tumblr and turn that into a thing. Here's the deal is that I don't know if I'm skipping ahead on questions or whatever, but like when I'm hiring people, I don't even like look at all the other stuff except for the things that they made. I go and I look at their GitHub and I'm like, where's your code at? I go look at their like portfolio and I like go click around on all those things. I go look at the sites that they made, and it doesn't have to be for a client. It doesn't have to be a corporate thing. In fact, the coolest stuff is usually just some crazy idea that somebody had, an experiment, a thing, and I can feel the passion through it. So it's something that you're passionate about. It's like a question you're trying to answer. It's a thing you're trying to learn. Make those things. That's how you learn stuff. And that's what ends up that then when you do that, like skills trickle down into the resume. And I guess there's some people that read that part of it, but like probably, but not really. They're looking for people who know how to make things in this medium that are brave or fearless or like, and have something to say. Just the skills to do the thing is not enough. You have to like actually work on your voice. You have to work on like who you are in this stuff. And I'm not talking about personal brands or whatever, I guess you can like call it that, but that's what's really about is just your voice and like your ability to make things.
I would piggyback on that and say I am talking about personal brands because being relatable is something you can't fake and it's something everybody is looking for. If you're looking to get a job as a host, if you're looking to get a job as a writer, no matter what it is, having a voice and being relatable and being genuine are so highly sought after. There you go. On the Twitters. Well, I would consider that part of your personal brand is your Twitter. If I'm looking at a host that we might bring on board or that we want to collaborate with or something, I'm looking at their tweets. What are they tweeting about? Is this going to be the next Sam Pepper? I don't want to collab with this person. It's like you have to like investigate people and figure out who they are. And that comes from being part of your personal brand. Sam Pepper joke relevant. Thank you. Thank you.
I always tell students the two things that will get you a job is an online portfolio of your work, whether it's your own website or a blog or GitHub if you're doing coding. Even if you're not doing coding, you may not know what GitHub is, but if you take my coding class in the future, you will learn it. And some level of networking both online and in person. If you are developing your brand, or if you want to call it thought leadership, but if you are saying interesting things in online spaces and people connect with you and relate to you, you will be successful. You will get a job if you show them you can do the work and you meet people and get connected with them.
Yeah, I was going to kind of jump off that and back to the resumes a little bit. I think the internet has really like watered down the importance of resumes. We've been trying to hire a digital news reporter, and like I get resumes and I kind of look at them, but really I'm just looking for your name and then I'm going to go find you on the internet. So you're either going to like put it together where I can look at it, or I'm just going to find like stuff that you may not want me to see. But regardless, like I'm going to find your stuff.
So threatening.
Well,
I'm going to find you.
Yeah. So I mean, like if you
You
have,
applied for my job. I'm in your
if
backyard.
you have cool stuff, whether it's a Tumblr,
I will never apply for it. No, I'm just kidding.
whether it's a
You outed
Tumblr
yourself.
or a GitHub or whatever, or your Twitter account, like
Yeah, good
well,
lord.
the NSA is in San Antonio,
So how many of you are terrified by that statement? I just want to know, are you terrified that people are going to be looking you up online? And how many of you are excited because you have cool stuff online that you'd like people to see and hire you?
Nice.
Many more hands for the people who are watching on the live stream on the second question. Awesome, I'm glad to hear that.
So it's just important, like resumes are great and everything, but with the internet, like everything you've done is there. You don't have to like send clips in. I could just find your clips. So it is a good idea to put the best stuff you have, you know, somewhere, whether it's an About Me page or your own website or whatever it is, where somebody can find it. But be aware of what you're posting. Be aware. I think that's been said, but be aware like what your online brand is and know and try to guide that as much as possible.
So I'm going to ask another question and then open it up for you guys to ask questions. So if you have a question, if you'll come down to the mic at the center and line up, I would appreciate that because we need you on the live stream. Did you have more? Okay. So I just want to know what you think are the trends in digital media that we need to be paying attention to now. If you have a crystal ball and can let us know, but really what you're seeing in what you do on a day-to-day basis are the trends for the future.
I hate this question.
It's always like the
And-
future is the
And
present
it's, and
anyways.
it's being
like-
taped so people will come back to it and be like, she was wrong. So.
I'm totally going to be right.
Yeah, like I think that, I mean, it's weird because it's like the future is the present, right? Like I think the biggest trend I'm seeing is kind of the depletion of the website as sort of this central model for content. And we're seeing a lot more of content just being out in the distribution networks, such as Tumblr and Twitter and Facebook. So thinking about how your content can be, correlate to those distribution networks is important to how you make something for the internet. Reddit.
I agree with that. I think, and we and I think that, you know, at Vox Media. That's why, like, we think about how we're on these other platforms as well, like building our own websites, right? So we have working on like how do we work with Tumblr? What does it mean to actually connect with that community, which is a different community, and they respond to different things, and Twitter is different, and YouTube is different, and you have all these different places to create it. But I think that that's definitely where we're going to see more and more of that. But I actually have like something sort of like counter to that, which I think the future is homepages. I actually think that what's going to happen is, and y'all and generations that are coming are going to realize like you can make the internet yourself, and that like these platforms that we have built are cool and they're important and they create a certain opportunity. But the web is yours. Like, you don't have to go to Facebook or Tumblr or Vox Media to do that thing. Like, you can make your site, your homepage, like your thing. And I think that's what the web was designed for. It's what it allows. And there's no privacy concerns there. There's no like, I mean, there are, but they're different. You know, the way that you are setting that opportunity of how people perceive you there. You're in total control of like what they see, what they don't see, how they perceive you. And when they go out and find you, and like domain names, go buy a domain name. Like, they're not going to go out of style, y'all. Like, everything's going to be on domain. So like, get a good one and like put something cool out there. I really think that's where we're going to get. I think, I don't just say this because I'm old school and this is where we came from. I'm starting to feel like these silos start to sort of fray a little bit, in the sense of like that the web is really starting to realize its potential of what we can create there and what we can make there.
The future is people. You can make a YouTube video tomorrow and be an overnight sensation. You can be famous immediately and get the job of your dreams off of one YouTube video. That is the present. Think about the future. You know what I mean? Like, if you have an idea and it's even remotely original, people want to watch it. They want to share it. They want to tweet it. They're going to tumble it. Everything under the sun. So people are starting to realize, I think that's already happening on YouTube. People are realizing it takes literally a phone and the YouTube app to upload it to. Like, you need nothing to put your ideas and thoughts out there, and people need pretty much nothing to share them and to make them popular. So I honestly think that you've seen like the rise of these megastars. There's Grace Helbig, the Shaytards. These are people who literally just did something. The Shaytards they just do a vlog every day in their family. Like, that's their whole shtick. Grace did a thing every single day, and she's a hilarious, wonderful person. And you can do that too. You can just make a vlog every day and see how the audience reacts to it and shape it to what they are driving you to and what you're actually passionate about, and people will start sharing that. So it can be anyone. It doesn't have to be these big YouTube stars. It can be anybody, like in a dorm room anywhere.
I think of the same way, like for people, it's happening. I think it's the same thing for like digital media news sites. When people ask me like what I read, I might say like the New York Times, the Washington Post, Vox, Gawker, Deadspin, right? Vox launched earlier this year, I think, right? Deadspin, I don't know how long they've been around, but they're very new. And I put all those 5 sites in the same category when I'm just like talking. It's crazy to think that Deadspin, which I don't know how many people work there, but 50, 100 maybe. It's crazy to think that a company that new with young people and that small and probably working, started out of somebody's house, can be in the same conversation about someone getting their news as the New York Times, who's been around forever, or it seems like forever. So I think that kind of what she's saying, it's allowing individuals that opportunity, but it's also allowing brands as a whole that opportunity to really like rise quickly. And if you're ahead of the curve or even at the curve, I think it's really exciting that it opens up so much potential for people our age. A lot of people are afraid of where media is going, journalism, advertising, wherever, but I think it's a really great time to be excited because we're going to like define where those things are going.
I love all of these. You guys are all so smart. I'm so glad I'm on this panel with you guys. But I really think actually, I'm going to take it a little step further in terms of making your own internet and being a person on the internet. I see so many faces, so many different kinds of faces in this audience, and I actually think you have a responsibility to make your own internet. We see all these distribution networks that have all this power. I mean, Facebook is the reason that BuzzFeed is so powerful, and all of these tools and features were made by white guys in hoodies. And when we look back at history, that's wrong. Like that is not representative of the world or people. And we all need to be put our output. We need to put our stuff out there, make something new, diversify this crazy internet world because it's limitless.
So we'll take questions. You have some professionals here, a very rare opportunity to ask a question. Please go up to the mic. Anybody watching on video, you can shoot it to the hashtag MCWeek, and I'll try to find it on there. But if you're in the room, stand up and come up here and ask a question. Don't all rush and run over each other, okay? We don't want to
While you guys are
mass
lining up,
chaos. Yay, Jonathan.
you should pat yourself on the back for being here, unless it's just like a class and you have to be here. But networking, and then it's still, hey, you made it to class.
First 2 people get a job.
Right. It's really a big deal. Networking, like, don't underrate that at all. Online makes it easier, but like networking is something that it's not really teachable. You kind of do it or you don't. You're not going to go to a class and learn networking. So as many opportunities like this, you get to, go listen to people, ask questions, whatever. You should take that opportunity. Follow people on Twitter who you think are interesting, because you never know, you may meet them someday. So good job, but keep up networking. It's very, very important.
People have gotten jobs from SCON Week, so hopefully. Go ahead, John.
Okay, so this question's for any of you, really, but I guess Annie more specifically, since you work on the radar at Tumblr. So you're each talking about being your own person, creating your own internet. So what exactly do you look for when you're looking for stuff to put on the radar, or to put on Vox, or to put on YouTube? What are you looking for exactly? What brings your attention to something?
Yeah, so it's a great question, actually. Radar is a really specific product, and it's very limiting because it's a visual post that doesn't have any context to it. So the stuff we have to look for there has to be a visually striking image that is an original piece of work by a creator on Tumblr. But I would say kind of generally, we are excited to help promote creators who have an individual voice, have a really clear point of view, have a really well-designed platform that is easy to navigate, and are active and engaged in the community. So as much as you are putting into the platform, as much content you're putting out there, we want to see a lot of more engagement with other people who are using Tumblr as well. We see a lot of value in kind of that two-way street. So I would say visually striking, individual voice, and engaged with the community.
I was just going to say being original and authentic is very important, whatever medium that is in. I'll just add that to what you said.
I would just add, like, so one of the hardest things is to stay with it, is to like start it and keep going. And one of the things that we look for are people who just like have been doing it and plugging it away, even if they don't have a big audience, that they have like that they've been developing a voice, that they've been learning to interact with it. But it's hard to keep it up. I mean, you like start it and like, I don't know how many of y'all have started a blog and like sweet 2 posts. And then like, you're like, man, remember that blog? It was going to be great. And you know why? Because it's hard. I mean, like creating things is, you have to have discipline and you have to stick with it. And so like people who've done it. And so when we were building SB Nation, we have, a site for every single team. We would just find people who like, they're writing about the Atlanta Thrashers or something. Like there's not really going to be a big audience anyway. They're even gone now. But like we found somebody who just write about that every day. That was their thing. And like, we'll be like, all right, like we want you here because we know we can help you, develop that voice and create things.
I mean, I wouldn't have the job I have now if I didn't have a website. It wasn't even, blogs didn't even exist. I started a music website in 1997 because I thought it would be fun. And it is a lot of work every time after I go to a show to do a post on my site. But I have this career now because it fascinated me and I loved it and I worked hard on it and I wanted to know more about it. So I am an example of exactly what you guys are talking about.
I think the internet also makes it like you could just do a Vine every time you went to a show, and that, like, if you did a good job at it, that could be a thing. It doesn't have to take 1,000 words per post. I think that's something that could be a 30-second YouTube video, it could be whatever, or a Tumblr post. I think that the internet makes it open to be whatever. So I think don't get afraid to start something because you think it's going to be a lot of time. Like make it fit what you're interested in and what you think you have time for. But I think, like you said, just stick with it. That's very important.
I just want to add to that. Like I was just like playing with Tumblr to like learn how it works and what the dynamics of it were. And I really did create like just a Tumblr about Dodge Challengers. I actually got credentialed by Chrysler. They reached out to me and were like, and I was like, yeah, of course I should be credentialed. You should totally send me all your press releases and all of your photos. And I want to go to like when there's new cars and all of that. And it was just by like, being an awesome curator. So that's just to that point, like it's totally possible.
I would just add to that, Twitter is the best tool for that. @reply every brand. You post a photo on new shoes you're excited about, @reply that brand. They will send you a coupon code. They'll send you a cute little tweet. Do it every single time and you will reap the benefits. That made me sound like a terrible person.
Good question.
I do not care.
Yeah, that is why we work with the internet. Free stuff.
This question is for anyone or all of you, whichever. when you guys were in college, or I guess around our age, like what careers did you guys have in mind that you would want to achieve?
I guess I'm young enough that's the same thing. Like I wanted to talk about video games. I talk about video games. There's the same thing.
Did you really though think that that could be a career?
Yes, I saw Morgan Webb on X Play, and I said I want her job. And then her network went in the toilet, and I did not get her job. But I just saw her talking about video games. I was like, oh, there's a lady who's on TV, and she actually knows what she's talking about. I want to do that. So, and I would add to your point about responsibility. Women in tech, or video games or anything, stand up, be heard. Right now is a very, very scary time. Hashtag Gamergate. Hashtag don't come after me. It's a scary time, but when you know that there's other women out there that are doing it and that are like brushing it off, they're getting their Taylor Swift on and they're shaking it off, it helps. So be vocal, be heard, and be present.
I'll just
Anybody
say,
else? Anything you
well,
wanted
when
to
I
be?
first started college, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Sociology major, like I said earlier. I guess like 2 years into it, when I was 20, I was like, well, I'll try out the school newspaper, and then it's like, I was like, oh, this is easy, it was like natural, and then like, I was like, well, I'm kind of like, I'm okay at this, and then once I got internships, I had a pretty good idea, like, I want to be a reporter, but I never would have like guessed, like, I'll be, really focused on the internet. I just like, oh, I'll write for the newspaper, but those jobs are going away, and the jobs that are there are, in digital media.
I would say though, when I was in college, I think I was a junior when I added mass comm. I was a history major, and actually John Zemickley started this talk show called Studio B. Don't Google it. It's on YouTube. Don't Google it. I'm sorry, John. It's so bad. It's so bad. I mentioned it in a video and people still come. It's so bad. But we did it. We would run we did a talk show every Saturday. We would come in, and I just did it because I was afraid of camera. Like, they would make me nervous when people would be at parties and have a camera. I'd be like, oh, gross camera. They're going to catch me doing something. So I wanted to be more comfortable in front of them. And so I did the talk show, and then I was like, this is fun. And then I saw Morgan doing it, and I was like, got to do that. But it's just doing something extracurricular that's fun and ridiculous and should come off of YouTube. Just let's talk about it afterward, just maybe. It'd be great.
She has some tips for you.
Maybe.
No. I mean, I went through every iteration of lost college student you could possibly go through. I think I went into college thinking I would be a Middle Eastern studies major. Then I was going to do philosophy and then comparative literature. This was all within 1 year. And then I found a school at NYU that was an individualized study program. So I had the great fortune of being able to make up my major and just take whatever classes I thought were interesting. And then at the end of 4 years, I had to defend that, but it was kind of like everything is related, especially on the internet. So I kind of made being lost into my college career, and it's kind of amazing that the internet let me do that.
You can't do that here. Don't encourage them. Pick something.
I wanted to be a programmer at the very end. I started off wanting to be an archaeologist.
We had
and
such big dreams.
I know. We were gonna figure it
We were
all
gonna
out.
find dinosaurs.
I was gonna discover things. No, it's art. I mean, but I think that's, we were talking about it earlier, but it was like archaeology, and then it was like, programming and astronomy and all these different pieces. But I think it was like all through that learning and then picking up the skills necessary to do things, or not finishing and starting and doing the startup.
Thanks.
Don't do that.
Thanks
I'm
for
so
your
sorry.
question.
I mean, I have to
Hello.
say, all I wanted to do was make money when I mean, it was I'll try not to say how old I am by saying when it was, but it was a time frame when everybody got business degrees, and that's all you just wanted to get a job and make money. And I wish I would have taken the time to really be more introspective and learn about what made me happy and like explore the things that I wanted to do. The classes that I took were English classes, even though I was a business major. I got an MBA because that's what we all did back then. And then finally, I found what I loved when I started doing web design work and teaching web design to students. So it's never too late to make the change, and things are going to change very, very quickly. Good question.
Hello.
Yes, I have a two-part question. First question, who can I leave my resume with?
Oh.
Yes.
What did we tell you?
Okay.
No resumes.
Okay. Come on.
Tweet it. Tweet it.
Tweet it,
Hashtag
there you
NC
go.
Week-
Hey, don't
NC
find me,
Week.
but yeah, find me. But anyway, second question is, I'm on Career Builder, Indeed, LinkedIn, all the good sites. And could you recommend anything on top of that I should be doing?
I don't look
the
at any of that shit.
Okay.
I do. I love
Okay.
LinkedIn.
No way. If you send me a LinkedIn email, I hate you forever. I hate LinkedIn. I had to do it when I was an intern. I hate it.
Turn off your notifications.
I know. I didn't. I'm not a member. I turned everything off. They still find me. If they could, they put a note under my pillow every night.
What are you
LinkedIn is
trying to do?
depressing.
What's your,
Get hired somewhere at the moment.
Like what kind of? I see that. I see that.
Yes, somewhere creative brainstorming, something like what you guys do, but it's anywhere that I can utilize my skills.
My advice, if you're looking for any, like, if you want a job in YouTube, make a bunch of YouTube videos. If you want a job where you're coming up with show ideas, shoot show ideas, like concepts, have that kind of stuff, like real world stuff, because like a resume is great and have a resume, but like they said, like nobody's clicking into your resume to look at your skills. They're looking at what you've created and how much that impresses them.
Yeah.
Okay. I love LinkedIn. It's my favorite social network, actually.
Excommunicate.
I love endorsing people for random things like Circus Acts and like whatever. It like doesn't matter. But I mean, LinkedIn like barely matters in terms of like what you're, if you're actually going to get a job. What matters is like your proactiveness with that. So, I mean, like use LinkedIn to make connections. Like I make connections with people at Vox that I don't know. And I'm like, whatever, we work in the same industry. It's kind of like the only place like that and Twitter, but Twitter can be really oversaturated. And they probably have like, if somebody has like 50,000 followers on Twitter, they're not going to notice me, but LinkedIn, they might, and I can send them a message. I think like cold outreach to people whose jobs that you are interested in is some of the best ways you can find a job. I get incoming emails from people looking for jobs all the time. There are emails that I respond to and ones that I don't. And I think, you know, when you go to those people, you find those people who have those dream careers that you are looking for, have specific questions for them. Don't just say, what's it like to work at Tumblr? You know, like, I think you want to be like a little bit more specific than that. And say, hey, I have, and show them you've done something. Show them you have an output to show. Be like, hey, I've been keeping this Tumblr for 3 years. I have this YouTube channel. I had this side project in college that was really cool. That's now defunct, but I thought it was really awesome. Like anything, just having something cool for them to look at and questions to answer. Cold outreach is going to be, I think, the #1 tool for you.
I think being proactive is like half the battle. So if you're putting yourself out there like you are right now, I think that's awesome. The tools that you use to network, whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter, I like Twitter a lot, but a lot of journalists are on Twitter, so it's kind of easy to break through that oversaturation. But like I said, half the battle is putting yourself out there. The other half is like making connections. So whether you go to like things like this and talk to people and get business cards, or you go to like a job fair, or you find online, you know, communities, whatever it is, just put yourself out there and have, you know, a brand or whatever you want to call it to put out there.
Yeah. I mean,
Just leave it at that.
it's already been said. I just is so important. Just like make things.
Yep.
Make things. The internet is so awesome because we don't have to ask anybody's permission. We just go make it. And like, that's so different than how it used to be. Like in journalism, you had to like find the internship, to write the thing, to show up and have the byline. And like, there's a opportunity to start your own thing or email somebody who has a blog that's interesting. And then, you know, just like, and make that stuff. And then when you do all these other things and like Twitter, I agree. Like I still like network through that of like people that I want to hang out with and talk to, you know, like just jump into their like mentions of like, you know, conversations that they're having and chime in, even if I don't know them and be able to kind of say, hey, this is my take on that thing. And then when they click through to the thing and find the thing, they're like, oh, he's like made this stuff. And I'm like, no kidding. I have met people that way and hired them that way, straight up.
No, I would piggyback on that so hard. Like just reaching out to somebody and saying like, hey, I really like what you do. How do you do it? Like there are a million of those. We get so many of those. Like there's no way to respond to all of those. But if you tweeted me on Twitter and said like, hey, I made this thing and it was cool. Ooh, I'm looking at you. Like Rooster Teeth hires people all the time, animators, artists, videographers who have just made something that was cool and gotten the attention of somebody at the company because they made something already that was cool. So like I would just piggyback on that 1,000 times and say make something, make something, make something, and show it to people. And I think that will get you so much further than like just reaching out and finding out about their job.
Make something that's cool though. Don't make like.
Yeah, don't make
But what Cindy used to always say was, you know, you can use these tools, whether it's Twitter or LinkedIn, to buy a piece of real estate on someone's brain. Is that okay? Okay. Well, to me, it was original. But that you can use those tools. But like he said, you know, he doesn't tell, or people don't say how old they are on the internet because like you're kind of anonymous. Like you have to stand out. You have to make something to make yourself stand out online. So again, make things that are cool.
OS_the Jedi plugin. That's what.
Love it.
Hi.
Hey.
Hello. You can take it out of there. I'm sure it's wireless.
All right.
There you go. Hi.
Hi. My question is specifically for Meg. Sorry.
Hello.
Hi. First of all, I'm a really big fan of yours.
Oh, thank you.
I'm not gonna lie, I knew what you're gonna wear today because I follow you on Twitter.
Outfit of the day, and I tagged every brand I'm wearing.
Good work. Good work.
Thank you.
Anyway, I was just gonna ask what exact advice you would give to somebody who's not really into your tech side of it and who's more into wanting to become a presenter or
Sure.
an announcer of anything besides, you know, making a YouTube video and doing what you want on YouTube, but like I don't know, like good people to meet or like what companies you should try to like look out for and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So for being a presenter, there's a lot of different ways to get into it. I hate to say move to LA, but it's a really good way to get into hosting. Casting calls are incredible, but aside from making YouTube videos, make YouTube videos and delete them. Don't leave them. Like if they're, you know, when they're not good and when you're not comfortable, you have to make 1,000. And if you put them online, Studio B will be there and people will find it. Don't do that to yourself. I'm sorry, it's so bad. But just be comfortable because those are going to be the things that you have to do. You're going to have to come in at this high pressure situation for casting calls. They're going to ask you to do things. For my SourceFed casting call, I had to memorize 2 stories and then present them. And then I had to do, to recite Top Gun, the movie, but only using sound effects. So that's the thing I had to do. So like you have to be comfortable with improv, with different ways of being comfortable about like your own hosting. Like if I was thinking about the stories I had to memorize and how I was going to present them, I never would have been able to think about Top Gun using sound effects. So like being comfortable already in what you're doing in hosting and presenting, just doing it, getting a following. I can't tell you the number of times that I've gotten my foot in the door for a casting call I shouldn't have because I didn't have enough experience, but I had enough Twitter followers. Or where that's like a minimum requirement. Like we don't want to see anybody for this brand unless you have 100,000 Twitter followers. So like getting that following, getting in, I've seen it happen so much, and now I see Twitter more than anything. So like get that following, get those fans, and keep at it, and they'll stick with you, and they will help you fix what you need to fix as a presenter.
Thank you very much. And also, I'm leaving right now, and
Oh.
it's not out of not wanting to hear the rest. I just have class.
Oh, no worries. We're all judging you. Thank you for leaving in the middle.
We're gonna watch you walk out.
Wow. So rude. Have a nice day, though. I hope you do well in your next class. Everyone's still looking. I'm just kidding. Hi. You have a lot to live up to. No,
I
I'm
know.
just kidding.
And she kind of stole my question.
Aw.
I was kind of going to ask about the YouTube thing too. But then to everyone, I guess, with your personal brand, how personal do you make it? You know what I
That's a
mean?
really
Like,
good question.
how do I know, like, what, like I have a Twitter that I like make it personal, but not as personal. I have almost like a character-ish kind of thing.
There are a lot of people who
But,
do that.
You know, like what do I do? You know, like what is better? To be very personal with my first and my last name, or to not have my last name? You know what I mean? Like, I think that's
I think it depends on what you want to do.
Yeah, it all depends
She
on
can
you.
probably say a lot more things on Twitter than I can. So it depends on what you want to do, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, like I use my real first and last name, but I worked with people at SourceFed who don't. You know what I mean? Like I worked with people online who don't use their last name or who have a different first name or whatever. You know what I mean? It's all about your level of comfort. I would say for your own personal safety, never vlog outside your house, never show people where you live. It's a very real concern. But if you're going to be a character, like, I mean, think about it. If you look at, if you look at SourceFed, who some of those people are on camera and who they are behind are totally different. but it's because that's their character and it really works for them. But if you're trying to put on a character and that's not your strong suit, that's not where you're comfortable, it's going to show. Like, people want a genuine connection. So if you're not somebody like, I'm not a very good actor, I'm terrible at it. So I'm just me because that's a lot easier for me. So like, if that's you, you just be you. But if you're great, if like putting on this character you're really comfortable in, be that character. But you just kind of have to accept the responsibility that comes with it and be smart about it.
I was just gonna say, I think that the important thing is to be not necessarily authentic, but like original and stand out in some way, you know, regardless of what you're trying to do, whether you're trying to be a journalist or you are a journalist, or you're trying to be a TV host or a YouTube host or whatever.
For those of you who aren't, trying to be like internet personalities, I think, your personal brand is obviously important on the internet. I use my first and last name for my Twitter and Tumblr and everything because it helps me professionally to kind of be like taken a little bit more seriously. But I mean, I never get really personal. I'm extremely private. I have like maybe 4 main interest areas, like art, politics, feminism, and digital culture. And like, I kind of stick to those in terms of the content that I am gonna tweet about, tumble about, everything. So,
I have to say that like topics is like one really good way to get like comfortable of like who you are and like, not necessarily like personal, private. I mean, I think that, and it's funny how that will develop, and then like how you'll like talk about certain things, and then if you talk about something else, like how people react to that, like especially like if you're watching your timeline and like sort of like talking in that, but everybody else is like, what are you looking like? I mainly talk about things related to work, but like I'm a big Astros fan, and like one day I was like talking about that, and there are all these people like it was a subtweet of somebody, and somebody was like, what are you upset about? Like, is this some media thing? I was like, no, they just fired the coach and it was dumb. And like, but so it is the
stick
topic.
to the brand, Trey.
Yeah, I know, right? They're like, stick to your brand. But that it's actually funny how that in what it shows you is how powerful that actually is. And I think that was an interesting lesson for me. I didn't stop.
Yeah, when you're just you, you get whatever you want. I can talk about ice cream, talk about what I'm wearing today. Don't have to.
I mean, I talk about Taylor Swift a lot on the
Okay.
internet.
See,
so
solid,
totally
solid.
fine.
Hello.
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
First, I'd like to say everyone in here is unique and awesome. It doesn't matter how
Aw.
many likes you have to find who you are as a person. And then my
That's
second
so great.
part,
So we can all eat it.
my
Oh
second
my God,
part is where do you find y'all's inspiration? I know we talked about creativity, but I feel like the main passion is behind your inspiration. And like me personally,
where do
I
you-
find it in nature. So like Albert Einstein said, better understand, look deep into nature, and everything better.
Speak up, please.
Astronomy. You did astronomy
There you
and
go.
everything. Did that really help your creativity? Is that where you found inspiration, patterns, stuff like that?
I'll just actually those things are really cool, and I was like really curious and learning, but it wasn't like necessarily my inspiration. I'll be honest with you, like I'm like, and this is partly because I left Texas, but I'm like an outrageous Texan, like talking about it all the time, and like so. One of the things that's really inspiring to me is like where I'm from and like what we have made and like mistakes we've made and awesome things. And so like for me, like it's where I'm from, and like and it's especially in Austin, the progressive tradition of Austin is really inspiring to me. Bedichek, if you've not read him, like is incredible for nature and like where like humanity of where we've come from. But Molly Ivins is like one of my favorite people in the whole world. Not to get super political here, but that to me, you find it in those people. And Texas is a super awesome, rich place. And like I go to New York and DC all the time, and those places are cool, but nothing's like this place.
Yeah, talking to friends at bars. Like surround yourself by really smart people and have them tell you what's going on in their lives and what they're working on. I have a lot of friends who are artists and have completely different brains from me. And I think that's important to kind of keep your world big and think about how people might be looking at it.
And I'm completely inspired by Austin. I totally agree. I don't even feel like myself when I'm not in Austin. And this is going to sound a little bit like I'm pandering, but my students really inspire me because First of all, I learn a lot from being around students all the time, and there's a new crop of you all the time. So I get to keep up with things, and you keep me on my toes because I see when I follow them on social media, they're my friends on Facebook, I see that they're running to their internship and then they're hanging out with their friends and then they're doing schoolwork and they have these really, really busy lives and I need to step up my game if I want to like compete in this world. So I am constantly inspired by students. I love helping them with their projects and helping them achieve their vision, you know, when they're making stuff online. So you can definitely get inspired by other people, being around smart people and like having a career where you're feeling like you're inspired all the time.
Thank you very much. My name is Chef Adams.
Bye. Have a nice
Thanks,
day.
dude.
Hello.
So this is awkward.
You can pull it out of there.
All right. So my question is, y'all's advice was really to like go through social media rather than a resume, and especially, sorry, Meg
Yeah.
was saying to send things and like submit videos if you make them or submit whatever you create. But if everybody in this room were to take your advice, it becomes saturated, sort of like what y'all are speaking about. So how do we sort of differentiate our personal brand on social media from everybody else? How do we stand out
Well,
on that? And this is for everybody. Sorry to.
yeah. No worries. I would say that it's not. I mean, I have 200,000 plus followers on Twitter and I still respond to people every single day and see the content they're making. And the saturation it's what you make of it, really. If you think like, well, they probably get 1,000 tweets a day, well, then I'm not going to see it. But if you do tweet me like this really cool video, or you tweet it, like if you tweet it and then I don't respond, maybe you wait. A real good internet stalker technique is wait till they just tweeted, because then they're looking at mentions, then tweet at them. Great tip. Thank you. No, so just you know what? If you make a video that you think is funny, show it off to the people, several different YouTubers that you think are funny. And what differentiates you from being lost in the shuffle is your content. If it's really funny, it's something I'm going to share. If it's just like everybody else's, I'm not going to share.
I think that's
Thank you.
awesome.
Can I ask a
I
real
won't
quick,
drop it.
Can I ask a real quick second thing to that? I'm sorry.
Sure.
So I guess more like centered on my question is, how do I incentivize people to look at it? Because you won't know my video at school unless you check it out. And if you receive a ton of them, then you won't even know the cool things that I had. So I guess that was more of my question.
Yeah, here's the thing that I would say is that it's a lot like, you know, thinking about how you create things for other platforms is like, you know, like know who you like want to talk to. Like just, I'm amazed, by the way, like the number of people that show up to interviews that didn't like research our company or just read all of my Twitter or whatever. Not that they need to read mine, but like, I'm just like, the amount of knowledge of like actually researching somebody, and like if you want to talk to somebody, like get to know them, like know everything about them, like be ready to talk to them. And if you're going to interview for a job, like, you know everything about that. And like I think the details there are really important, like, you know, of knowing, you know, what's that favorite article, or what's that really amazing reporting that was done, or what was that, like, you know, and being able to talk to it, but not just like I'm not talking about flattery, by the way. What I'm talking about is like to have a really good, robust conversation and to ask really good questions. You have to know who you're talking to. It's just straight up like reporting, to be honest. But like that's, I think, a really compelling thing. And like I listen for a long time before I start like trying to reach out and talk to people that I want like to work for me, or that I hope that like I get to hang out with someday, just to say something smart, you know?
Yeah, if you say, it doesn't necessarily have to be your own content to start off with. If you notice that Annie is always tweeting about art, maybe say something like, hey, saw this and I thought you would think it was really cool because I saw you like this artist and it's that artist. That's like something that now I'm going to connect that Twitter with, like, oh, that guy showed me that cool thing one time. And like if I keep seeing you show up showing me cool things, I'm going to think that guy has great taste. Like he's able to connect with me.
Yeah, that's one cool thing about Twitter is like it doesn't necessarily have to be your content to be your content. Like you can have an awesome Twitter timeline or whatever they call it.
Yeah, it's a
newsfeed.
timeline. Embrace it.
And none of it has to be created by you. You know,
retweeting.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
engaging.
And also like kind of what he said, research. If you're gonna interview for a job, one really good way, like we just took in maybe like 30 resumes or a little bit more for this job. And maybe like 2 people proactively, you know, found me on Twitter, followed the brand on Twitter. Like it's easy. It's pretty easy to like, do that. If I get a resume, I'm going to follow you. Like, you should follow back. And if you're not paying attention, like, I'm not interested, I guess, if that makes sense. So it's pretty easy to stand out. I think it's just like be active about it.
Yeah, it takes time. You can't just like crank up a Twitter account and then be like, look at me, look at me. You have to be part of the community. You have to be engaging. You have to have like a certain group of people that are paying attention to you over time. And then it's the buildup of it, not one thing that you do, not one piece of content. It's how you engage in the community. So we are out of time, unfortunately. I'm sorry for the people at the back. If you want to come up and ask people individually, because I know people may have to go to other engagements. But I told you these guys were rock stars, so let's give them a hand for this wonderful panel. Thank you all so much.